The Bookshelf with me, Ryan Tubridy, is brought to you by Ballymore. Founded by Sean Mulryan in 1982, Ballymore has long put arts and culture at the heart of what it does, from supporting artists and performers to weaving creativity into the neighbourhoods it builds. Alongside this cultural commitment, Ballymore creates places with soul. Its international portfolio is filled with award-winning workspaces, homes, shopping centres and entire neighbourhoods across Dublin, London, Bratislava, Prague and Berlin. Places where design, innovation and creativity come together and where people can live, work and play. Well, welcome. Today on The Bookshelf, we are joined by one of Ireland's most respected crime journalists, Nicola Tallant. She's best known for her fearless investigations into organised crime, but also her hugely successful Crime World podcast. Nicola, who I know a little bit down through the years from being on different shows on the radio and TV, has built a massive reputation for essentially digging deep into what they call the murky underworld of Irish and international criminal networks. But today we're going to be turning the page on her reporting to hear about the books that have shaped her life. And Nicola, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here today.
Lovely to see you.
Are you in good shape and good form?
I am, definitely.
You're busy. Isn't it funny? Because I would have known you as a Sunday World journalist back in the day, let's say it that way, not to put too fine point on it. But the podcast world has blown up. And when I was telling people that I was coming to see you today in the last week, everyone raised an eyebrow going, I'm dying to hear what she has to say for herself because they're really enjoying your crime podcast. So has this given a different spin to your life since you got into that world?
Totally and utterly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I started off the podcast in about 2019 in my kitchen, you know, with my producer finding my fridge noises irritating, and he plugged it out so many times that I forgot to plug it back in. And that's how it all sort of started.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just grown huge. And I love the idea of being able to be a bit chatty.
Yeah.
You know, crime, you know, you're on the radio or whatever, and you have to be very, very tight with what you say and all the rest of it. But you can make it a little bit entertaining, you know, because that's what it's all about. So you have to tell the stories. You can have a sort of an arena where you can tell some of the stories that happened along the way.
Yes.
You know, some of the little things, the little nuances that I would have usually just kept for the dinner party circuit maybe. But you get to tell those. And I think people enjoy the intimacy of you know, hearing a little bit something funny that might have happened or a conversation that might have happened rather than just a headline.
Because the crime writing as a fiction, which people, it's so big and gets bigger and more authors, and it can be cozy and it can be Scandi and whatever it might be. But real life crime story seems to have a different nearly a different audience of its own, if you like. What do people say to you? Why are they just so drawn in such big... Like if you go to Netflix, for example, what have you, you'll see the bookshops, the shelves have now expanded. What's happening there? I mean, is it storytelling? Is it a bigger appetite for gruesome, you know, stories, etc.? What's going on?
I think it's a really interesting world, you know, the world of organised crime. The people in it are pretty interesting. They're not sort of accountants, not to insult accountants, but they don't have boring lives. And it's that kind of idea that they're always sort of fighting against a system maybe, you know?
Yeah.
And they're anarchic people and they're bold and they're kind of interesting.
But you're speaking like, there's like a weird respect you have for them in some ways, the way you're talking. You're kind of going, they're like punk citizens. Yeah,
sometimes like you think of the things they do, the chances they take, and you just kind of go, wow, you know, that is pretty mad. I don't think I would have had the courage to do some of the things they do. At the same time, you have to remember that it's violence and death, really, and that holds it all together.
Yeah.
You know.
And threat and menace and drugs
Absolutely.
And what have you, yeah.
Yeah, and the effects that all of this has on society. But I mean, I think that you have to have a broad mind with it as well and go, people often say to me, you know, what are criminals like? But like that's like asking you what are human beings like. They're all different.
Is that a question you get a lot?
I get a lot,
Do you? Who do they most want to hear you talk about?
The big names, really.
You can drop names here.
You know, they like the big names. They like to know about the John Gilligans, about the Jerry Hutches, you know, Daniel Kinahan. These kind of like top tier celebrities, really, within the criminal world. But then they also kind of like the sort of funnier stories, the ones who come a cropper. you know, who maybe build an incredibly large mansion and forget about the existence of the Criminal Assets Bureau. The ones who have their Rolexes taken from them only to be given them back because they're fake. You know, they like that kind of stuff as well. So people just like to be entertained, don't they?
It's a gallery of creatures and characters that you've just mentioned there. My goodness, like John Gilligan and, as you say, the Kinahans. I mean, even the TV show Kin, which was about family, but just happened to have be the first three letters of the most notorious crime family in the country. You know, there's a kind of, I don't know if it's a grudging curiosity about these people, but they certainly aren't dull.
No, they're not. And sometimes you're surprised if you're actually, you know, face to face talking to them. You find yourself liking them as a human being. Like, you know, they're amusing, they're funny,
cheeky.
Yeah, all those things, which is kind of like what
How does that make you feel?
Well, I like people like that, really. You know what I mean? I like kind of interesting, funny.
Yeah.
Irreverent types.
But when you know, and I'm not trying to be self-righteous here, and that's not what the point of my question is, so I'm not doing that. Well, you know what they do? We know what they do, so that's a given. It's a crime, like that. The clue is in the name. But does it make you feel a bit sometimes queasy if you find yourself really not being charmed, because that's not the point, but certainly enjoying the company of somebody who, say, is very dangerous to other people's lives or whatever? Or do you compartmentalize?
Probably when I'm there, I will compartmentalise. And then you do have to, when you walk away, you have to kind of remind yourself, like, hang on a second, this person does this. And that's a side of them that I've seen. That charming bit is the bit I've seen. But there's this whole other bit to them that I haven't seen. They haven't presented to me.
Yeah.
But they have been, you know, very violent, or they could have murdered somebody or ordered a murder.
Yeah.
In the same way you might ring up a takeaway. So you do have to remind yourself of that. Then I think, though, people we meet everywhere in life are a little bit like that, aren't they? You sort of have to... Listen. You only see a little bit of somebody.
Yeah, of course you do.
You don't kind of get behind people and see the bad bits of them, because nobody presents themselves like that to the world.
We all have a sort of slightly insta existence. Let's go back to a little bit about yourself growing up and being a child in the home. And I always like to try and get into the house when you were little, about maybe 5 or 6, when you're becoming a sentient human being who might be, you know, curious about a book or a comic or a magazine or whatever. Tell me about your home, if you don't mind. Was it mum, dad, brothers, sisters? That sort?
I had one brother. Parents were... My father would have started out actually as a barman, and I always remember him... I have a memory of staying awake until he came home at night. I don't know whether that happened really, but I have this memory of waiting for him to come in and getting a big hug from him.
What was his name?
Noel.
Okay.
And there was always this smell of the pub, which remains comforting to me now.
I believe that.
You know?
Yeah. So that's cigarettes and booze and
kind of
smoke
thing.
in the hair. And because you could smoke in the pubs then and so on.
Exactly. They must have been. And he always came home. Like, he was a bit wild, but he always came home.
Yeah.
I always remember that. There was never a night that I fell asleep, that he didn't.
Interesting. You were kind of keeping an eye on the like an adult would for a child on the key in the door.
Maybe I wouldn't have seen him all day or something. I don't know. But then when I was probably about 6, I think, or 7, he set up his own wine merchants. So he had his own business as a wine merchant.
Okay.
And there was always sort of bottles of fancy stuff knocking around our house. He would have drank a glass of wine with dinner.
Yeah.
And there was always a bottle on the table, which I don't think was usual maybe then, was it?
No, it wasn't.
1980s,
no. Well, there was a kind of Pedrotti and Blue Nun and Black Tower and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We didn't have the range, I think.
Which he would have looked down his nose on, maybe some of those. So there was always this kind of thing floating around. And then he did champagne and he did whiskies and stuff like that. So, and I think we were sort of, myself and my brother would have been, like, when he set up initially, I can remember hauling, you know, wine and everything in and out of these buildings and stuff. So I think we were all on board for it. And it was probably a risky thing for him to do as well. Yeah. You know, the 80s weren't really great, were they?
Economically here, a lot of people would have left and gone to London and to Boston.
Exactly.
So yeah, a big risk to take a business like that.
A big risk. And he also... And sorry, I'm not forgetting my mother here.
No, it's going to come to her.
The two of them were involved in it. But we were sent to private schools. We always had a foreign holiday in the summers. And I don't think people had that.
No, they didn't. They definitely didn't. So that was fairly privileged. I mean, which was lovely. And your mum?
It was when you look back, yeah. But she also worked. She was always had a bit of a job. She was always out doing a bit of work, and then she was at home, but she was the main.
Yeah.
You know, it was that kind of probably more simple way to conduct a marriage.
You said kind of like almost like in a bracket there. Your dad was a bit wild. What does that mean?
Well, he was just, you know, he was a bit of fun, I'd say, you know, to go out with. You would have enjoyed. Absolutely, yeah. He was funny. He'd always make sort of sarky comments about people under his breath to you, and you'd end up in stitches laughing, and then, you know, he'd just stand there like totally deadpan as if what's wrong with you, you know. So,
that's good. I like that. So he was a bit of a messer.
He was. And actually, unfortunately, he died when he was 62 very suddenly.
Oh my goodness.
And he got a sore throat, and it ended up into a strep, and he died in hospital.
God help us, 62.
Really, yeah. And he never got to retire. And I had just had my eldest daughter, Daisy, and she was a small baby. And I always felt sorry for him that he never got to do the grandkids thing. And he would have been brilliant fun now. Like,
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah, so that was... And my mother dusted herself down, and kind of, women are amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it was such a shock to her. Like, there was no... You know, sudden death is deeply traumatising for families. Not that long illnesses are something you'd want either, but it just throws you completely off.
There was no plan B with the sudden death. And at least the long term, it's not easier to grieve, but at least you see it coming a bit more.
Something like that. And I remember, like, they would have travelled an awful lot. They would have done really exotic travel. And I remember the first time after he died, that she was going, I think she was actually flying down to Kerry to see her brother.
Flying?
And the airport, you know, I think she just sort of hadn't got him there, you know.
Yeah.
And it
Trigger.
was, yeah.
And she went, where is he? This is not normal.
But she got on with life, and she was very stoic, really. And, you know, but so he was great fun.
He sounds
I have great memories of him.
Well, take us to the reading aspect of your childhood. Were you one of a classic Roald Dahl, Lena Blyton kids, or did you read at all, or what was your vibe?
Oh, I did read, definitely. Yeah. And actually, my father used to take us to the library on a Saturday.
Which library was he?
We went to Sallynoggin Library.
Yeah.
And he'd go and get his John le Carre novels or whatever.
Oh, did he? So he was a reader too?
Very much
lovely.
so.
Okay, great. Well, he would be taken to the library, of course, yeah.
And we'd go and get her whatever. But I remember Mallory Towers, you know, The Secret Seven, all that sort of stuff.
But it's great though.
Yeah.
Great to have them.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think I was reading all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not so good now.
Was school good? Happy in school?
Yeah, school was. I wasn't a great, I was happy in school, but my head was gone out of it before that dreaded leaving cert, I have to say, you know. I actually finished in the Institute.
The Institute of Education,
which was a disaster for me because
Too
I just
social.
met it. Exactly, yeah.
So for people, you normally go to the school system, and then there's this other quite special place, and it's pretty privileged to be able to go to the Institute of Education. It's like a academic finishing school in some way. You can pay extra and you get more to get you over the line.
There's no uniform, you're in town,
and you're in the city.
And there's nobody making sure you're in class. So if you're there because your head is out of school, it's a disaster.
What happened to your head? Why was it out of school?
I just realised, maybe it's not a realisation, but that this was not anything that was going to be useful to me. And I kind of realised that sort of at 50, and I just did not want to be there.
The school system was just driving you nuts.
Yeah,
what was driving you so mad?
I just thought it was so useless. I really did. And I didn't think that it was going to affect me going forward, whether I finished it or not. There was a bit of a struggle to get me, I think, to do the leaving cert. I didn't even collect the marks when they came out. I was in France. And my mother actually got me into journalism college because I was quite happy to just keep floating around there. I had no interest. I had applied for certain things, and something I'd applied for I didn't get, and I just said, all right, that's great.
That's the end of that. Well, I will come to journalism in a minute because obviously it's a critical point in your career. But the book from your childhood, have you chosen one for us today? Well, funny enough, we were clearing out some stuff in my mother's recently, and I found this book, Marmalade Atkins. Do you remember Marmalade Atkins? I don't remember that. No. I don't know why. Is it a dog or an animal of some sort? No. She was this sort of rebel teenage girl. Tell me about her. Who
was the father was a businessman, the mother was a bit flaky, used to spend all his money, and she had this social worker, but she couldn't, every school she went to she got expelled from. She was so bold, but not like bold as in, yeah, she was just sort of bold and rebellious, and she got into all sorts of, little scrapes. Yeah. She had a friend who was a donkey called Rufus, and he could speak, and the two of them together. It was just fun. It actually, do you not remember Marmalade Atkins? Because
I'm surprised
it was made into a TV series.
I was a TV addict as a kid. I'm surprised this passed me by.
I'm surprised it passed you by.
I'm 52 years old.
Yeah, I'm 51.
Are you?
And actually, when we found the book, I showed it to my brother, who would be 50. He's 3 years older than me, so he's 54. And he was just, the two of us were just going, oh my God, nostalgic Marmalade. Kick. Yeah.
So the teenage rebel, I mean, it's a very obvious thing to suggest that you were taking notes there. You sound like you were pretty rebellious.
I don't know if I was too bad.
Were you difficult for your parents?
Probably.
Were you a bit of a headache?
Probably.
In what sense?
I think that business of the, I probably would have, had I applied myself in school, I probably would have done.
Now you sound like one of your teachers, don't you? If she has the brains, but she doesn't apply herself. Exactly. This is parent teacher meeting over and over again.
Exactly it. That's it. But I always wanted to be a journalist. I knew that in my heart and my soul from as long. Yeah.
But then take it a bit further. Then what happened to encourage that train of thought and desire, ambition wise?
So I suppose I came back and did that 2-year course in journalism. It was the only course in the country.
In Rathmines?
In Rathmines.
Yeah.
I think they took in 20. So did that for the 2 years, and sure, they were queuing up to give you... They actually wouldn't let us do work experience between first and second year because nobody was coming back.
Because they got the bit of money in the pocket and a gig, yeah. Then within, it's like going into medicine, you have to pick a discipline. Where did you want to be? Did you want to be on television, on radio, in print? And within that, did you want to be in, a health correspondent, a foreign affairs? Where was your heart? Or did you fall into it?
Oh, I wanted to be a war correspondent.
And so what year are we talking about? 91, 2, 3? So it's Iraq war time, isn't it?
It was 90... Or Berlin War. Yeah, I suppose it would have been that time.
Around Iraq war. So the news was constantly... that. So you were looking at Kate Adie or whoever.
That's it.
And Orla Gearan and thinking, ooh.
I want to do that.
Right. Why?
I want a flak jacket. I want to be out in the middle of it.
Yeah. So why?
I don't know, the danger or something. I have a little bit of maybe a genetic malfunction that I'm drawn to a little bit of danger.
Genetic from your dad?
Maybe.
Come on.
Maybe. That side. But so I did want to do that. And I mean, if you take a young person going into journalism, they will tell you they want to be something that, as the older head, you're looking at going, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There's not that many people that get plucked and go to war. So I sort of settled into working in Dublin. And I think after Veronica Guerin was murdered, I was kind of a main sort of the Irish reporter as such for the Daily Mirror in the UK. We had a sort of a very small Irish office, which was brilliant because I had to do the main story of the day, whatever it was. Can
I ask you to give us an explainer on who Veronica Guerin was for the younger and foreign listeners to the podcast? Because her story was so essential to this country's social history, and policing history, crime history, and to your story. So if you wouldn't mind a little... Yeah,
so she was a female crime journalist, probably the best known in the country, and she was exposing a lot of the main criminals. In particular, she was homing in on a guy called John Gilligan,
aforementioned,
who was making a lot of money through drug dealing and had bought a huge big equestrian centre, the largest in Ireland, and was really flaunting it. And there was this sort of feeling at the time that this was getting out of control. This was becoming, we had sort of parked terrorism and we were moving into the era of organised crime. And she was doing a lot of really good work. And Gilligan threatened her. She was shot in the leg initially. And then in 96, she was coming home from a court case. She had been speeding, another little penchant of mine.
Yeah, okay.
I can connect with that. But she was shot dead, unfortunately. And
in the traffic.
In the traffic. And it was a huge moment in Ireland. Like this was... We'd crossed a line in the sand here.
It was cathartic for the nation.
Big time. She was a young mother. I mean, she was only in 40 or something.
Yeah, if that,
she was killed. And it was shocking. So there was a huge crackdown and the Gilligan gang were chased.
hither and thither.
They left the country, and they were ultimately all brought back. And for the first time in the history of the state, the Special Criminal Court was used for non-terrorist crime, cases.
And reminding people that this was a court that normally dealt with IRA people and so on. Yes,
it's 3-judge court. There's no jury for tampering with that. There was many reasons for its existence. It's controversial in many ways, but so they were brought before the special court. So this was the big story of the day, So of course I was on it.
And you were with the Mirror at the time.
Yeah.
And tell me, when you heard she was shot, what your feelings were. Did you have emotional feelings, or did you say, "I'm a professional, I've got to get to work"?
I didn't personally know Veronica Guerin, and it was just, I think I felt the same as everybody else. I didn't feel particularly connected to that.
But given that you were a crime correspondent, I would thought you might have gone, Christ, am I in the right job here?
I don't remember feeling that.
Okay, but nevertheless, now you were on the story.
Yeah.
Just to be crude about it. How was that, and what were you finding as you got deeper into the weeds of that story?
Well, I remember being in the Special Criminal Court along with hordes of other journalists, and John Gilligan was in the dock.
Okay, the main chief suspect.
The chief suspect. He actually wasn't convicted of her murder. He got convicted on drug offences and got a very long sentence. But he was sitting there and he kept scanning the journalists and finding the females, and then he'd give you a wink, or he was being very smug, and I was going, my God, this guy is sitting here, like, you know what I mean, he's facing a really long sentence here, and he is this horrible, he was everything. That just explained to me why he went for her. I think he wouldn't have maybe done the same thing to a male. It was this total misogyny and sort of a little bully, but I didn't feel afraid of him at all. I didn't feel afraid of him. I just thought, this is the kind of guy I want to expose.
You saw him as a challenge rather than a threat.
Totally.
And how do you accept the challenge? What do you do with that?
Well, I suppose you have to try and then tell stories and expose these people and do whatever. It took me a long time to realise that it's a bigger picture than just one incident, and to understand the fabric around crime and around society and why people end up doing these things. I have no sympathy or empathy for John Gilligan, but I have stood in courtrooms where there's young men, very young men, and they're being sentenced to life in prison because they've taken up a gun and shot somebody. And I've sort of made me more mature mind now that I look at them and I wonder what went wrong and whose fault is this. And I think, if you dig into the weeds of it, it's the fault of society. It's all of us really are at fault.
Go further on that, explain.
So, we just talked about my childhood.
Yeah.
I had a lot of support systems. I had a lot of things going for me.
You had the library, the foreign tour travel and so on.
Everything, and supportive parents.
Yeah.
And there wasn't sort of addiction in my home around it. And,
You were in a block of flats.
Exactly.
Looking for, wondering where the next meal was coming from, seeing somebody over there with a new tracksuit or what have you, going, where'd you get that? Well, because I did that job for that fella, and before you know it, you go, well, actually, I want that bike and I want that.
This is it.
Gear, and on it goes. And these are the small fry. So you see within the world of injustice and another level of injustice.
Well, I kind of think, what would have happened to me if I had grown up in different circumstances.
Yeah.
I certainly, when you're born with those privileges, with those sort of, what would you call it? It's like you have a bank there, in your background. You're probably always going to get to some decent job or lifestyle or whatever. It's a guarantee, really, isn't it?
Sure.
Whereas if you don't have that, and you don't have somebody looking out for you and making sure that you get into college and all the rest of it, you're going to you're being left behind.
Yeah.
And also, I remember interviewing this guy. He was a hitman, and he was discussing his childhood and all the rest of it. And he sort of was just chatting, and he sort of said to me, he was about 15 at the time, and he had, he was there, and he was, what am I going to do? And he reckoned he had two choices: to become a drug addict or a drug dealer. And that's what that was his experience. He had two choices in life. He felt, he believed. So,
that's the reality.
That's the reality of it. Yeah.
I was talking to Alice Lee, brilliant guest on this season, and she said that and she deals with a lot of people from in the homeless world and all the walks of life in some ways. She says within about 10 to 15 seconds, immediately if someone's a good egg or a bad egg, you're smiling. When you meet these guys, the hitman, the kingpin, the lackey, do you think you can spot within 15 seconds a really evil, malicious piece of work versus a poor fool who's got caught up in a horror show world?
Mostly.
Tell me about that.
I think you can see it in people's eyes.
Really?
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
Well, you can see that they've done a certain thing or they are a certain thing, but behind them you can see that there's a human being there that has had experiences and, that they're the way they are because they were shaped like that through their childhoods or whatever.
Yeah.
But you can also, there's the dead eyes, as I would call them.
Yeah.
And, that's when there's just no humanity left. And that's scary when you're up close with that kind of a look. There is a look. And when I see that look, I just want to get out of there.
Even you?
Yeah, because that, and I've been in certain circumstances where I've seen that look, and I know that there is no question but they would kill you. They wouldn't care who you are, what the outcome of that might be, but they would. So you just got to get out of there,
I presume you've had countless death threats given.
And trust your intuition as well.
Sorry, tell me about your intuition. That's important.
Well, I just think that I believe that you have, if you can tune into it, and maybe because of my work, I've had to tune into it a bit. I think that you can tell sometimes when you're in a situation that you need to move yourself out of it. I've had these kind of strange things have happened sometimes. I've met people who I shouldn't have a bad feeling about because they're in a certain job that, you shouldn't be feeling this way. And I do. And a few times it's sort of come back that, they actually have been engaging with some of these crime gangs or whatever. And I just have this feeling.
Yeah.
You can brush that aside and you're just been a bit mad, you're just been a bit paranoid. But actually sometimes if you go with it, it works. Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever felt afraid?
Very rarely. Very rarely. But fear is debilitating. And when you do feel fear, you're useless completely and utterly. You can't think straight, you can't. So I have felt it.
Can you give us a sense, without naming names because you don't want to do that, but give us a sense of when that happened and why it happened?
Well, I remember one time it happened, I definitely felt fear, had to gather myself. I had a death threat at the time actually, but at night. And you're lying in the bed and you're just going, what have I done? How stupid am I that I did this stupid job?
Yeah.
Why didn't I just
Had you written a story?
Normal? Oh yeah, I mean it was a bad time. It was after the Regency Hotel stuff.
Okay, so again a reminder of that. This was a boxing event that took place and there was a shooting. And maybe give us a little taste of that story.
There was a shooting and it was really the implosion of the Kinahan organised crime group, and they went to war and in the aftermath of it. But there was such high tensions and emotions, and that's what happens when something like that. So everybody is under threat, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody's angry and they're threatening the postman, they're threatening this. Wow. So there was strength in numbers.
Yeah. And you were one of those.
I was one of those on the list. And it was quite surreal. But I remember just lying in bed at night, how stupid can you possibly be that you've got yourself involved in this? Yeah. I mean, being threatened by a cartel that big with that much money, with that much power is not.
It suggests to me that if they wanted to have you dead, they could.
Well, that's
quite
actually how you have to just rationalise it.
It's pretty terrifying for me to even get that word, or get that sentence out of my mouth, because I feel like it's upsetting to say it.
Well, it is what it is, and it passes. And actually, the thing about it is that, like, to be logical about it, because you have to be logical.
Yeah.
If a journalist or somebody like that comes under threat, it's not the same as some poor person living in a neighbourhood.
The postman.
It's not the same. They are the ones really that I'm sure are rolling around the bed at night. I mean, anytime anything comes up for a journalist, we get the state wraps around us, We have liaison officers in the Gardaí. We are kept safe.
You're on watch.
And you have your employer as well, who's, you're grand, actually.
Compared to the poor fella up the road.
Compared to somebody
who's goosed, really.
Totally. Or who owes a drug debt and their children are being, you know what I mean? So you have to actually be a little bit sensible about it and talk yourself back off the ledge. And I do that. I can do that.
Yeah, that's a strong Marvel superpower to have. We're back to privilege again. You are privileged even in threat.
Definitely.
And somebody down the road, his kids are going, my mammy mightn't, or daddy mightn't be alive today.
And like, I have people on the phone to me all the time, like that stories that I don't tell. I talk to people a lot of the time. And their kids are, you know, owing money and I mean, they are terrorised. And what do they do? Do they go to the police? Do they not? Are the kids going to get killed? You know, it's horrible. And they don't have that same support like that a journalist would have.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about the book that changed your life at this point, if you don't mind. It's a hard old question, but I'm sure you had to think of a few. But what have you alighted on for us today, Nicola?
Yeah, I don't know whether a book has changed my life.
I appreciate
that.
But
it certainly... So Jeanette Walls, The Glass Cat, have you read?
No, I have. Again, sorry, I'm having a bad strike rate with you today. But go ahead.
So she is a very well-known writer. She lives in New York. She had the most incredible childhood with an alcoholic father and a mother who seriously had mental health problems. And they roamed around America with nothing. There was never food in their bellies. They were so impoverished in so many ways. And she writes the book and she's able to do something which I find fascinating from a structural point of view. She is the child when she's the child. It's the child telling you their experiences.
Yeah, I love books that do that. And she does it obviously very well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And as she grows up then...
Her voice matures?
Yeah. She starts seeing things as she's growing up that as a child she's able to describe to you as being magical and fantastical. Like the father's absolutely, you know, pissed out of his head and he's telling them a story and, you know, but then she starts to see him as that alcoholic and bad provider, and it's a fabulous book.
And why did this book impact on you so much, I wonder?
This book was given to me by a friend who reads really well, and I'm really not great at reading these days, and I can pick up a book, put it down. I couldn't put this thing down when I started reading it.
Yeah, it's a great compliment for a book, yeah.
And it was something because I had written a book called The Witness, and I wrote the book with a guy called Joey O'Callaghan, who was basically groomed into a drug gang, and he ended up, the guy who had groomed him shot somebody dead and tried to get him to hide the weapon and stuff, and he ended up running to the police, going on the witness protection program. Huge big story around it all. I had written this book with Joey and I had got near the end of it, right? You know what a book, I like writing a book is...
Torture.
It's torture. Yeah. It is torture.
Yeah, and you kind of want it to all go away halfway through, yeah.
It's horrendous, but it's like doing your leaving cert over again.
Here we go again.
But I had got, I think I was probably 3/4 of the way through it, and I ripped it up and started again because I needed to write it in Joey's voice. I realised I didn't have a place in it.
Interesting. So you went back to nearly the book that you described.
And actually I read the Jeanette Walls one after the bloody thing was finished.
Oh, after? Oh, my God.
But had I read it beforehand, I would have known to try and, well, I mean, look, her writing is beautiful. You should read it.
I will. I love that. And that's one of the joys of this podcast is I get to hear about books that I write, including Marmalade Atkins, who I have to look up and find out what the score is there. Do your children are now pretty much young women, like my own, and... do they hate your job?
I don't know.
Do you talk about it?
Probably not.
Is that bad. On purpose?
Well, you see, I never wanted them to feel anyway frightened. So I think if you ask them, they'd probably say, oh, she's so secret, she never tells us anything. But my job has changed now. So, you know, we do live shows and podcasts and get invited to the electric picnic and all. Yeah. So that bit of it, they kind of think
rock
is
and roll
quite
mum now.
cool.
Yeah,
you know?
Okay.
And I can get them tickets to the Trinity Ball and things like that.
Right.
And so I'm kind of popular now.
I see. Well, God, after all those years in the wilderness.
Exactly.
She's back.
And like now that they're sort of grown up and their friends are always kind of coming in, and, you know, the lads in particular, and they'll be like, tell us about Mr. Flashy. Yeah.
Oh, so you're kind of rock and roll mum.
And
they're loving this. They're loving the podcast, obviously. And they want to hear what's your man like and what's your mum like.
I don't think they properly know what I do, actually.
Yeah, the girls.
But they sort of know. They like the sort of the... I think maybe when somebody else does and says it to them or something.
Yeah.
But I don't really know. We don't talk about it.
Yeah.
It's maybe a bit dysfunctional, that bit.
No, it's not. I think that what I'm trying to say is, I think it's a reflection of how I'm hoping it's a reflection of how much your kids love you by the lack of interest they show in what you do for a living when you're a high profile person.
Maybe.
That's how I'm living off of it.
Yeah.
No, but there's a sort of like, that's your thing.
Yeah.
You're my mum. You're my dad. That other guy. That's for everyone else.
Exactly.
I think that there's a bit of that about it.
And I suppose you're mainly seeing your kids in the home, which is such an environment that is, where we all feel we can just be completely ourselves. And
you're not on.
Yeah.
And are you? How would you describe where you are in your career now? I mean, in terms of journalism and exposing stories, are you on fire? Are you taking a step back? Are you kind of getting into podcast land more so, or what's happening there?
Yeah, very much podcast stuff.
So it's more
that's kind of pretty much my full-time job now on Crime World, and what I really like doing is the longer form investigative reporting. I'm back to where I started.
Back
that's
to
what I
Rathmines.
really love.
Yeah.
You know, I love getting my teeth into a story, getting 6 months to work on it. That I don't know where I'm going. I honestly don't know. I don't know how I got here, and I don't know what's happening next. And it sort of works so far. So I kind of think the only aspiration I could have is that I like to bring on the younger people.
Okay.
I love sort of
mentoring
maybe, and showing them how much fun this job is.
Yes, despite the fact that it can be a little unnerving.
Amazing. It is, honestly, there hasn't been, I can't believe people pay me to do it. It's
what
great.
a lovely thing to be able to say. I mean, I might do something very different to what you do, but I love it. And that is back to the word privilege. I mean, people are going, okay, we get it, you're privileged, but it is a joy if you can love your job. Groomed, a Coercion, Control and a Cold-Blooded Murder is your book that's out October 4th. Talk to me about this. This is a serious and shocking story. When did you first come across it, and what are we talking about?
It's a bit of a departure for me because this isn't organised crime. This is sort of domestic crime, really. I was up in Derry, and I was very interested in this story. There was 3 girls who were in court because they had helped cover up what ultimately was a murder. They didn't believe they were covering up a murder. They thought this guy, Johnny Creswell, a show jumper, had accidentally killed a girl called Katie Simpson. She's 21. She is presented at a hospital having taken her own life. Yeah, what a story. And he has actually murdered her. And, it sounds a little bit like, when you're trying to describe it very quickly, it's a big story. It's a big thing.
But you've given a blurb for what sounds like a fiction crime novel.
But that's exactly what I was good. Doesn't it sound like a fiction?
Completely. It could be Agatha Christie, but this is not anything of the sort. This is only a few years ago.
It is, and these are real people. And you sort of think that horse industry, that show jumping is really privileged and is really...
But criminals can be posh too. This is an important thing to say.
Yeah.
And that's, we're talking about white collar. We did talk a lot about the other end of the class system. But you've come across the bad eggs up the other side too, let's face it.
Well, Johnny Creswell now, who ended up taking his own life as he went on trial for murder, he's an intriguing character because he has a collection of women around him. He's almost like a cult leader, and people are mesmerised. Women are mesmerised by him and will do anything. So I was trying to dig into why or what made him, So
for that research, did you go up to and I mean, was it all gumshoe knocking on doors stuff?
Did a lot of that, yeah.
Yeah, how was that?
Did a lot of that.
Did you remind yourself of your younger self?
Yeah, I love that. You
love all that
and
stuff.
Actually, funny enough, I find nowadays doors will open to me. Sometimes people come to me, so it's not as hard work to do that anymore. People will just take one look at me and decide whether they want to talk to me or not.
That's trust, and that's important.
Yeah.
This book sounds amazing. I cannot wait to read it.
Yeah, I couldn't wait to finish it.
Give it to me.
My publisher's on the other day going, okay, you're out of contract. Will we sign you up again? And I'm going, please.
Not just yet. Yeah.
Just
I love the young girl who couldn't finish the Leaving Cert, just didn't want to finish the Leaving, is now writing books. I mean, the torture, it's like self-flagellation. The book that brought you joy, Nicola, what book have you gone for here?
What book have I? Oh, well, yes. I went for a book, which I would have read as we were talking.
What's it called?
Stick It Up Your Punter.
Come on.
So I would have read this book when I sort of started out working for the Daily Mirror tabloids, my journalism
sounds like a real tabloid headline.
It's an amazing book and you should read this.
I will. Peter Chippendale and Chris Horry.
So it was basically written about the Sun newspaper and the rise of the Sun and the power of it and during the Thatcher years and all the characters that were in it. There's very funny stories within it about how they went after, stories and all this sort of irreverent stuff. But in actual fact, it is an incredibly interesting look at the sort of merging of media and power. And I mean, it's Succession before Murdoch goes on, like it's Rupert Murdoch and it's all...
Oh, I'm getting that book today.
It is an amazing book. Yeah. I think it was actually rewritten in 2012 or added to after the Leveson inquiry with all the hacking and stuff. But it's like Elon Musk and Trump, It happened then, but the newspaper was so powerful, it was able to change people's minds. And you've all these incredible characters that are working in tabloid newspapers. They're very clever. Yeah. They're very intuitive with people. They're marketeers. I mean, every day they have a blank page. But it's just interesting to go back, read that, and then consider, social media and the power that the media has when in bed with a politician and
Plus ça change, I think is probably the message there. The last question today, Nicola, is the name of the autobiography you have yet to write. Your life story on the cover of a book. Have you given that some thought or?
Only because I was asked.
I know, and we understand that. You weren't sitting losing sleep at night about this one.
No, I thought maybe Crime Pays.
Crime Pays? Explain I think I got a rough idea, but talk to me about that.
Well, I suppose I earn an honest living out of crime, don't I?
Crime Pays is a really good one.
So, I mean, it's just... it is an irreverent maybe thing to say, but it does.
It does. And I think irreverence is key to what you do. I think anyone who does a job like you needs to find that humour in those dark places that you just go, God, well, I can't be crying into my cornflakes every day. I have to find the crack and the gas, and Crime Pays sums it up beautifully.
Exactly.
Thank you for coming in today. I've really, really thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
You brought me down memory lane.
Well, it's been enjoyable being there with you, and I love the story. And I really hope your daughters listen to this because they're going to get so much slagging together for you, of you. You brought in a packet of Percy Pig jellies. You know how much I love jellies. That means a lot to me too. Very thoughtful addition to my day. But Nicola Tallant, good luck with everything you do. Congratulations on the new book for actually getting it out and finishing it.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Ryan.
This episode is brought to you by Ballymore, a company that creates places with soul, putting arts and culture at the heart of its work alongside creating award-winning workspaces, homes and neighbourhoods across the UK, Ireland and wider Europe. To find out more about the places Ballymore is shaping, where people can live, work and play, visit ballymoregroup.com.